this world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Rally round the West Indies, now and forever. Rally round the West Indies, now and forevermore. Santokie, we are up. West Indies are out of the group. We're going into the Super 8s. The whole World Cup is alive. Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel and Santokie. Santokie Nagilendra, my partner in crime, is here. Santokie, what do we say? West Indies are back.
West Indies are back. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. All I know, Mash, West Indies are back. We are back. I can't believe people at home thought we were ever going to lose to down bad New Zealand, you know?
New
West
Zealand
Indies,
does.
big man West Indies, the legacy. You ever think Sammy would let that slide? The legacy, Pollard, Bravo, Gale. You think our T20 legacy was going to fumble at home in front of the Trinidadian fans, the Trinidadian people? Them never, Mash. West Indies are back. T20 cricket is alive. The World Cup is up and running. We are here.
Talk now, Viv. We are up. We are really, really up. Listen, Santokie, I mean, to be fair, let's call it correct, because before the tournament started, I said to you that my expectations at best were like, I'll just get out the group and whatever comes next is a bonus. You said from the get-go you think the team can get to the semi-final. Now, at this juncture, both of us are winning at this moment in time. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, Santokie, but we do know that South Africa are already through and they will be in our group. There's 2 spots to go at the moment, although as we're recording live at the moment, England are smashing down bad Oman. But we know it's going to be England or Scotland, USA or probably Pakistan. We know how it's going to go. What I guess we can say, Santokie, is given the momentum of the side, they have every right to feel they can minimum get to a World Cup semi-final. I am conceding that they have every right to feel as a team that they can at the bare minimum get to the semi-final. Is that hyperbole, Santokie, or facts?
No, I think that's spot on. I think that's accurate. I think we're playing South Africa. South Africa aren't the best side. I know they've got 3 wins. They've struggled in periods. We beat them in the build-up to this World Cup. England, we beat them in December. One-off game, we can beat England. And also, it's looking likely if it's going to be USA as well, because I think there's rain in Florida at the moment, heavy torrential rain. So if USA's game is rained off tomorrow, USA go through. So potentially, Mash, England might not go out. If Scotland beat Australia, we could see a Super 8 group, which will be Scotland, USA, South Africa, and West Indies. Now, I know people might get us in the comments and be like, Scotland beat you one time. Like, Scotland are a threat, USA are a threat. Listen, if you ask any West Indies fans, will you take that group in the Super 8? We'd bite your hand
100%.
off.
100%.
USA and Scotland. Like, come on, we should. If we lose to them in the Super 8, fair play to them, but we should be beating them. I don't think we have anything to fear, even if it's England and Pakistan that come through. I don't think at this point, the momentum West Indies are carrying, as you said, winning that big pressure game that we did against New Zealand, that's going to take a lot of weight off a lot of the players' shoulders. Yeah. I think we're going to play with more freedom, carry on that momentum. So as you rightly said, Mash, the pendulum has swung. We've gone from a scenario where fine margins, if we lost yesterday, be nervous times trying to scrape through, to now we've got confidence. We're looking ahead now. We're saying, hold on, we can make the semi-finals. We all know once you get into the semi-finals, anything's fair game. Anything can happen. So we don't want to look too far ahead there, but I'd say at this point, it'd be reasonable to say semi-finals are a realistic expectation. And that's a credit to the side. And I think just going back to the game yesterday, Mash, we've talked about, obviously, in the last few months, the sort of oversaturation of T20 cricket. We got so many franchise leagues. You're losing track of what's going on. I think yesterday showed how good T20 cricket can be. It swung both ways. You never knew who was going to win. Packed crowd, and most importantly, there was an importance, like the context to it. It was such an important game. So it felt like an iconic game for West Indies, and for us to pull it off, you know, the crowd reaction, the player reaction, it was a monumental win, and it's just essentially what the region needs to sort of galvanize it. I feel like obviously the World Cup had started, but we'd heard the groans after Papua New Guinea, and even though we beat Uganda, it was sort of lackluster. There was no limelight. I feel like yesterday felt like the opening game of our home World Cup. It felt like that. This was where our campaign starts. So it's good for the region, good for the fans, good for West Indies cricket. And it's fair to say, Mash, we're not exaggerating. We would say West Indies are back, you know?
Yeah, no, we were for real, we're back. And I think it's important to point out as well that it's not just the fact we beat New Zealand. It's, remember we've been saying after PNG and Uganda, actually, no, let's be honest. Before the New Zealand game, we said we don't care how we win. And there were elements of the game yesterday where actually we don't care how we win was apt. When it was 30 for 5 and 77 for 7, I think all West Indian fans would have been fretting, saying, boy, looks like New Zealand are going to turn us over, but they found a way. And that, to me, falls into the bracket of, I don't care how you win, just find a way to win. And yesterday, and we can break it down in the forthcoming minutes and so, but they found a way. Now, obviously, a lot of the kind of plaudits, rightly so, will go to Shafane Rutherford first and foremost. But every game thus far, I think game 1 against PNG, it was Chase and Dre. Obviously, against Uganda, a few of them came to the party. But the point is, every game thus far, when we've needed somebody or somebody or a few of them to kind of say, yeah, I'm your guy. The Kill took 5 for 11 against Uganda. Someone has stood up. Someone has found a way to make sure that the team wins. In some cases, wins handsomely. In other cases, gets over the line, so on and so forth. Now, those are the obvious positives. And in fact, actually, the second big positive I want to talk about, Santokie, was the bowling. Because arguably, as much as Rutherford did what he did, the bowling, apart from Romario's final over, which I think went for, I can't remember if it went for like 24 or 20 or something like that. But apart from that final over, the bowling was as disciplined as I've seen a West Indies bowling attack in a long time. We know already that Akil Hussain and Gudakesh Moti are going to give us 8 overs for barely nothing, right? And in fact, combined, Moti and Hussain went 8 overs, 4 wickets for 46. I mean, right? And if you add in Chase's over, it was 9 overs, 4 wickets for 50. So do you know what, Santokie? Let me give you credit, because you spoke about this in the preview. You said we probably want a pitch which favours our spinners. You thought that would give us more of an advantage, because you said that we have better spinners than the Kiwis. Yeah. And yeah, half our overs were spin, took 4 wickets and slowed the whole Kiwi chase down. So actually, Santokie, it played out how you thought it might.
Yeah, and I think we both said how Machel Santokie not a world-class spinner. He's a good spinner, not a world-class spinner. And that final over he bowled of the innings against Shafane Rutherford, that essentially gave us the game, him going for runs. That took us from a total where New Zealand were likely to chase it to 149, which they weren't, had a few question marks over it. And as you said, Mash, it's a game where we showed we could come back, because pretty much for the first 18 overs of our innings, we were down and out. It was, 112 for 9? Moti's coming out to bat. You're thinking, if we can try to get 120, run a ball, even that, what can we do with that? So for Rutherford to manage the game, I think what was important was how Rutherford managed it. He pretty much faced every ball of the last 2 overs. Moti only faced 1 ball. So Rutherford played it smart when a lot of the batting lineup beforehand hadn't played it smart. So that game management from Rutherford was good. It felt towards the end he was playing on a different pitch to what we'd seen from the other batters. And yeah, so it's a credit to how we managed it. But as you rightly said, the bowlers as well have to get credit, because 149 is not a substantial total. Like New Zealand could have got that. So it was down to our bowling to kind of take that through. And I guess New Zealand sort of played how we thought, Mash. We said on the preview show, looking at their top 5, 6, there's not really a gun player other than Glenn Phillips. He showed some slight bits where we thought, okay, he might do something, but he never really looked like New Zealand could take control of the game. And it sort of highlighted their squad. So whilst we feared that they might bounce back, essentially the first loss against Afghanistan was a reflection of their quality. They're down bad. So they lost. New Zealand are out. West Indies move forward. So there's been a lot of positives. I think mainly, I know a lot of people will say, oh, you guys are negative talking crud. Like, we spent the first 10 minutes highlighting, look how a positive win, what a something to celebrate for the region. However, Mash, if we break down the West Indies innings, obviously West Indies lost the toss, got put into bat first. It's interesting. Rovman said he would have loved to have chase on this pitch. So that sort of highlights his thinking, what he thinks West Indies' strengths are. Now, Trent Bolt, he gets Johnson Charles in the first over. Mash, that fell to script for you. That was something you'd called beforehand, Bolt getting that wicket. So let's talk on Johnson Charles, because we've got a dilemma now, because in tournaments, often teams, you know, they go on superstition and carrying out momentum. Charles has been down bad for 2 of the 3 games, but we've won all 3 games. So
I'd say he's been down bad every single game. Even the 44 was down bad, relatively speaking. So I reckon he's 2.5 out of 3 games he's been down bad.
All right, so let's go with 100% down bad from Charles so far, but every game we've won. So if you're Sammy, do you go for a pragmatic approach and say, listen, we've got to tactically change it up, get someone else in? Or is there a part of you thinking, hold on, man, why change a winning formula? Do we just keep Charles in and hope he comes good in a scenario where pretty much every game now after Afghanistan is going to be essentially a knockout game?
So I've got like maybe 2 different views on this. I mean, first things first, is complicated by the fact that we don't even have to beat Afghanistan. We don't have to top the group, because wherever you come first or second has no relevance to anything, right? So we don't have to beat Afghanistan. I think we should try to, just to keep the momentum going. So that affects things, because we don't know how many changes Sammy's going to make for that. And we don't know if all the bench players are going to get a game. And before everybody puts in the comments, we think this person we'll do a video on that. But I'm just saying, I don't know how many changes they'll make. The second thing I think I want to say, Santokie, is because every time I've mentioned Johnson Charles's name over the last week and a half, what tends to happen is somebody from St. Lucia or one of the Leeward Islands comes into the comments and says, you're just anti-St. Lucia. Let me just put this officially on record for anybody who watches the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I don't care what nation a player comes from in the region. You could come from my nation, Jamaica, and I will still cuss if there's something to cuss about. I actually don't care what nation you come from. If you're shit, you're just shit, and I'll just say so. Like, it's irrelevant to me what particular nation you come from, right? Now, I am worried, Santokie, because if I can say, me, who is a nobody and who for some people in the region will say I'm just a loudmouth, bossy dunce, right? If me with my loudmouth, bossy dunceness can say 4 or 5 days before the game, yeah, Trent Bolt's going to bowl Johnson Charles inside the first over, and he's going to go through the gate. Johnson Charles isn't going to move his feet and he's going to get bowled down. If I can say that, Santokie, 4 or 5 days out from a game, because I know how he plays, how comes the coaching staff didn't know that then, Santokie? That's all I want to know. And that's not for me to say that everyone should listen to me. That's not my point at all. But it is for me to say, so it should never be that predictable. It should never. No cricket player should ever be so predictable that some dunce in London can go, yeah, it's going to get out that way, and it's going to happen really, really quickly. And that should, to me, that should ring some level of alarm bells for them to say, is he actually in form? Do we give him one more game to really show us where he's at? But then remember, Santokie, Mayers wasn't picked. And do you remember you and I said before, when we looked at the World Cup squad, we said there's no actual backup opener if somebody gets injured. So whatever we do, it's going to be a makeshift situation, whether it's Shea Hope or whether it's someone like, maybe they say to Hetty, go and pinch it. I don't know. But they've created this problem for themselves by never bringing another opener anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I think if you can predict a way a batter's going to get out and you think that he's a walking wicket as soon as he comes out, it's not a good sign. You rightly said there, though, the Afghanistan game is essentially a free hit. So do they use that to experiment a new opening partnership? Do they keep Johnson, Charles and King in and say, look, Charles, go out there, no pressure. Let's see what you can do.
Play your game, play your natural game.
Play your natural game. There's no pressure on you. So what way do they approach that? It'd be interesting to see. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot. We've got no openers. Obviously, Mayers is a reserve, but you can't bring him in unless there's a withdrawal from the 15-man squad. So if you're looking at the Afghanistan game, you essentially have to pick from Hope and Hetmyer, as you said. Obviously, the other two players are Obed and Shamar. So I don't think they'll go. I mean, we'll do a video on this, but just quick thoughts. I don't think they'll go with Hetty as a pitch hitter. As a pitch hitter, it's too radical a shift. That most likely they could go with Hope to try and stabilize batting in the power play. But Mash, if you take out Rutherford's innings, it was a bad batting performance for West Indies, if we're honest. It was I know the pitch caused problems, but if particularly Rovman, Chase, even Pooran to a degree, it was poor shot selection, for my opinion. We essentially were saved by Rutherford being able to manage the game. So whilst there are massive positives, there are alarm bells ringing in terms of no one else really could bat alongside Rutherford. No one else put up many runs. So we take the win, but it wasn't a perfect kind of authoritative win. It was essentially Rutherford saved us at the end of the day. What are your kind of thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting take there, because you could even argue, Santokie, that the constructive critique that I've got is that we're actually yet to click in any of the games with the bat. It's just that against PNG, Uganda, and now New Zealand, someone has come up with the goods, but the team hasn't come up with the goods as a batting unit. And so if there is any doubt in my mind, the only doubt is how long and how deep can you go in a tournament without your batting unit clicking as a whole? You can never have a situation. I mean, we've got away with it thus far in our group, but you can't have a situation where effectively you're saying, well, someone's going to do something. Like, you've got to have more than this idea that one man might click. You probably need the unit to click it. The deeper you go in the competition, the more you're going to need your batting unit to actually stand up, I guess is what I'm effectively saying. Now, what I would say, and I don't know if it's a defense of Nicholas Pooran per se, but there's question marks to be had about Pooran coming at number 3 if Johnson Charles or King, whoever, is going to be a walking wicket. Because for me, you never know what, if you want to maximize Nicholas Pooran's ability, you never want him walking in with less than 2 overs gone, if you see what I mean. And I think because Pooran came in so early, I think it almost affected the way he batted, because effectively Charles had gone for a duck or 1 or whatever it was. And it was almost as if Pooran said, well, it's the power play, so I've just got to go hard from ball 1. And it meant he never gave himself a chance to even... I felt that Nicholas and even, well, Roston was gone after 3 balls, irrespective of what the pitch was doing. I think it's fair to say that too many of the batters didn't even give themselves time at the crease to work out, right, how is this pitch... Sorry, first and foremost, how is this pitch playing? Secondly, what's my strategy on it? And it felt at times, at times in the innings, where it was like, well, our strategy is to go hard, without actually working out if that was the strategy for that particular pitch. So Nicholas went hard, hit a few 4s. I think he may have got 1-6, got out. Chase came in. And bear in mind, Santokie, I want you to hit on this Chase point. Chase is supposed to be the guy who's the glue guy, right? Everyone's been banging on about the glue guy. My man went for an ugly Paul Hoik after 3 balls. And I was watching it going, what made you come with that shot? What made you do that? That's not your role in the team. What on earth was that about, right? So I just wonder if their heads got scrambled because so many people came in whilst the power play was still going on and just assumed, I don't know if they just assumed they had to take it on.
Yeah, I think Pooran definitely did. You could hear it, how hard he was crunching the ball. I think there was a chance earlier on where he smashed it at a fielder, Daryl Mitchell.
Oh, yeah, good point, yeah.
So he came out just smashing it, basically, just thinking, you know what, it's a power play, I've got to get runs. So I'll give you that one, Mash. I think because of the scenario of being in the power play, he's essentially not playing his natural game. Which leads to the question, who do you throw out of 3? Do you put a Chase in to kind of consolidate? But it's the power play, so you want to try and get as many runs.
Exactly.
So it's a fine balance to try and get. But then the flip side is, Mash, if Chase bowled 1 over yesterday, he bowled 1 over, he lasted 3 balls with the bat. At what point are you utilising Chase in this squad then? Because he's not bowling and he's not batting as you want him in the side. We don't need another finisher in the side who's going to come out and leng it. He's the guy that's meant to glue the side together. So if you're not utilising either strength of Chase, what's the point of having him in the side is my question at this point. It could have just been yesterday, like you said, his head was scrambled. Then we saw Rovman get out to he got edged, didn't he? But again,
yeah,
he wasn't comfortable.
I think felt like he was trying to guide one down to third man
Yeah.
or something, and nicked it through to Conway.
King as well, and then we saw Akil Hussein hit a 6, but then after that, he wasn't looking sure of himself. So that sort of top middle order weren't looking confident until Rutherford kind of consolidated. So going back to Chase Mash, I mean, I don't think they'll drop him out the side, but we have to utilize someone like Chase a bit better. We can't have him being a bits and pieces all rounder who doesn't excel in either, basically, because then you're essentially down one man.
But does this all go back to Charles? Because if Charles doesn't get out inside the first over, does everyone then come in the power play thinking they need to make up for the runs that Charles didn't get? So there's actually a lot of thinking to be done around this. And everyone's going to say in the comments below, well, just drop Charles for hope and that's your problem sorted. I don't know if it's as simplistic as that, but there is definitely some thinking that needs to be done. So yeah, as you were saying, Santokie, 77 for 7 at the halfway stage. And even as you said, and let's talk on this point, with 2 overs to go, sorry, 3 overs actually. So I was on the WIvNZ cricket chat app with Stacey and King. And when it got to about the 12th over, Santokie, I said to Stacey, there's 8 overs left in this game, but New Zealand don't have 8 overs left of bowling from their frontline bowlers. And I said to her, what's their plan here? They better bowl Satner soon. Otherwise, they're going to end up having to bowl someone down bad at the back end, right? Unbelievably, Santokie, and I know what, right? So I've been trying to unpick this all day. And the best answers I've received so far from people who I think understand cricket better than me on a tactical sense, they said New Zealand were trying to bowl West Indies out as soon as possible to help their net run rate, and they were going for the kill, which is why Trent Boult came back in the 18th over rather than leaving Boult for over number 19 or 20. At the time, I thought it was a huge mistake. I was like, surely you're not going to leave overs 19 and 20 for Satner and whether it was Phillips or Mitchell as a part-time or whatever it was going to be. I was like, no, surely you're not going to do that because you're asking Trent Boult to effectively take 2 wickets in 1 over. What if that doesn't happen? I thought it was a poor tactical decision. But other people who are potentially better tacticians than me said, nah, Williamson was right to go for the kill. I disagree, personally, Santokie, because I think as a captain, irrespective of how down bad the West Indies are, you have to keep in the back of your mind as a cricket captain, what if it goes to the death? Surely that's always got to be in the back of your mind. If it goes to the death in a T20 match against whoever you're playing, you should never end a T20 match with 2 down bad bowlers at the end like that. That's, to me, that's cricket 101. You have to assume you're going to need at least one of your best bowlers at the death. So was this, and this is where I guess I'm going with this, Santokie, was this Rutherford getting us out of jail, or were we helped by New Zealand, for me, miscalculating the use of their bowlers? Because remember, Santokie, as you said, it was 112 for 9 at the end of the 18th. Rutherford took 37 runs, and Gudakesh Multi played a valiant 0 off 1, right? Rutherford took 37 runs of 2 overs against effectively down bad Satner and Daryl Mitchell. And I think that's the Kiwis' fault for messing up their planning.
Yeah, I think it's one of them ones, Mash, where it's like you go by. I agree. I think it was a poor tactical decision. When you got Trent Boult, one of the all-time great death bowlers in your side, surely you have him at the back end. And I think it was the pressure on New Zealand. As you said, they were going for the run rate. If it came off, if Boult did take 2 wickets, people would be lauding Kane Williamson. Great tactical, reactionary work to the game. So, I mean, I'll give credit to New Zealand. They tried something different, didn't come off. But looking at it logically, it didn't make any sense. If you got Trent Boult there, have him bowl the last over, because that over from Rutherford, the last 2 overs, 37 runs, essentially swung us the game. If it was a Boult, I don't imagine Rutherford would be laying the 6s in the last
exactly.
over.
Yeah, let me even look, right? So the last over, Rutherford lenged 18 runs. Now, even if he only got half of that, New Zealand are possibly chasing 140. And obviously the over before that, he lenged Darren Mitchell for 19 runs. Like, they effectively, and Rutherford, I have to give credit to Rutherford, because he clearly was like, let's get through this boat over, because he was actually on strike for that boat over, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not no, Multi actually played out the. Did Multi play out the dot at the end? I can't even remember. But the point is, Rutherford targeted the final two, knowing the final two were going to be down bad.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. So full credit to him for taking advantage of it. But I do wonder, maybe there'll be some Kiwis who are listening to this. I do wonder if New Zealand fans who are watching at home are like, what on earth are we doing? We're leaving down bad for the last 2 overs. This isn't going to work. So I do want to know how the Kiwis were responding to it as it was unfolding. Now, be honest with me, Santokie. When you saw that we'd made 149 for 9 at half time, did you think it was enough?
No, I thought 160, 170 to be. I wasn't, because I didn't know how New Zealand were going to come out and approach it. They've got batters who can sort of construct an innings. So I was thinking maybe we were 10 short, 10, 15 short. So I was more probably, I wasn't thinking it was that the game was over, but I was thinking there were alarm bells in my head, like, hold on, New Zealand could chase this, knowing especially that we'd thrown away a lot of wickets. It wasn't as if like it was. So I was thinking that. But then New Zealand start their innings. Essentially, New Zealand batted as down bad as we did, except they didn't have a Rutherford player to bail them out, basically. They
I
really
agree.
struggled. Yeah, go on.
Oh, no, I think I agree with you. I think really and truly, when you look at it, the main difference in the match was, I think, do you know what though? I think West Indies out-bowled New Zealand. Yeah. But more importantly, New Zealand just didn't have a Rutherford, because that was effectively the key difference between the two sides, right? And because if you actually, a fun, interesting thing, Santokie, if you actually look at the halfway stage of the match, right? So the West Indies at halfway were 49 for 5. New Zealand were 58 for 4. So a lot of people are going to try and in post-match say, yeah, West Indies dominated that. But actually, Santokie, really, if we're being honest, West Indies dominated the final 2 overs. If we're really being honest, that was fundamentally the key difference between the two sides. So at the halfway point, New Zealand were ahead, right? Yeah. Even if you go to overs number 13, West Indies was 77 for 7 at over 13. New Zealand was 73 for 5. So in terms of where both teams are at, it wasn't, the scorecard makes it look like it was a domination. But I think when you look over the match as a piece and how both innings went, they were probably level pegging until Rutherford. Until Rutherford did what he did at the end, the game was actually, if you're looking at those kind of whatever they call those charts where they're matching each other's innings, it was probably even Stevens up till over 18 when Rutherford exploded. Yeah,
and I think even the commentator, I forgot the New Zealander guy, is it Ian something? He was saying on the feed, like it was essentially the same innings, just New Zealand didn't have a Rutherford. Basically, the innings were parallel. Obviously, Alzavi Joseph stand out with the 4 wickets.
Yeah.
He got the wickets. Obviously, I think it was Phillips, Neesham, and Salvi towards the end when New Zealand were really trying to go for it, having to score runs. But for me, my pick would have been Moti. Moti took out the 2 batters, Ravindra and Williamson, who could bat deep and take the innings to the end. Yeah. So those were 2 crucial ones. We know what Williamson can do. He's never going to be a power hitter, but he's someone who could take it to the end and score the runs when needed. Similar to like a Ben Stokes kind of guy, kind of thing. So to get those 2 wickets, and Ravindra, we know he's like the young future of New Zealand cricket. So for Moti to get those 2 was a big breakthrough. And then Alzavi to back it up as well. 4 for 19. So I'd imagine for the Afghanistan game, surely they'll rest Alzavi, probably bring in a Shamar Joseph or Obed, give him a rest. But really good performance as well. And obviously Akil Hussain did Akil Hussain things. Just trying to get his figures up. What did he get in the end? He got 1 wicket, but he only went for 21 runs as well, crucially. So the bowling performance was good. Yeah. Like you said, our bowling was better than New Zealand. We talk about the batting mimicking, but our bowlers really stood up.
We bowled better as a pack, I think, because New Zealand's pacers were good, but they only had 4 of them. So we fundamentally, they went in with effectively 4 bowlers and were hoping, well, Satner didn't bowl his allocation. Maybe Satner was supposed to be the 5th bowler, but their 5th bowler quotient was made up of Glenn Phillips, Daryl Mitchell and Mitchell Sapner. And when you add up their fifth bowler, essentially their fifth bowler got laying down. Their fifth bowler went for the equivalent of, let me just add it up now, 46. Their fifth bowler went for the equivalent of 55 runs off 4 overs. When you add up the 4 that made up the 4 overs, so that's effectively where they lost it. They were good with the 4 pacers, and then were dreadful with the makeup of the fifth bowler. Let's just, we don't have to have a big debate about it, but we should quickly mention that Pooran failed to run out someone, I can't remember who now, when he had all the stumps to aim at. Could have just thrown the ball to Brandon King to knock down the stumps. So it's worth mentioning this because West Indies maybe could have wrapped this up a lot earlier. Johnson Charles, I think, missed a sitter on the boundary. Someone else dropped one where it went straight. Who else dropped one? Charles dropped one. Pooran missed a run out. There's somebody else I'm thinking of who dropped one. Rutherford dropped one early as well. That's it. Went straight through his hand. So there's elements of the game where we still need to tighten up, and I think the fielding comes into that. Given there were 2 drops and a possible run out. And then lastly, Santokie, there was one more point I wanted to talk about.
Quick question, Mash. So obviously the Super 8s, they're playing in, I think it's in Barmy Army territory. It's what, St. Lucia, Barbados, Antigua, I think are the games, or something along those lines. However, the semi-finals are, one's in Trinidad, one's in Guyana. Obviously, we've played in those 2 venues now. At this point in time, if you had to pick looking ahead, where would you rather the semi-final we play in, Guyana or Trinidad?
It all depends on if you believe a crowd matters. Now, the one thing we haven't mentioned yet is that the Trini crowd in Tarouba was amped. They were lively, packed stadium. And remember, we spoke about this as well in the pre-match, that the crowd could be the 12th person if they're really behind the West Indies and so on and so forth. This is not to criticize the Providence crowd. I would assume that by the time the semi-final happens, the people of Guyana will actually turn up for a semi-final, because it'll be a big game regardless. We already know that the BCCI and ICC have bent the rules to make sure that India are there, right? So we already know that it's likely to be India. So
why do you think India preferred that, just because of the spinning capabilities, basically?
Well, I presume spin, but I also presume they think that the Guyanese crowd will get behind them, right?
Nah.
You don't think so? Why else did they?
Nah,
why else did
I
they
think,
want to go Guyana then?
I think it's because of the pitch conditions. Because one, me personally, I think the whole Indo-Caribbean supporting India thing, I think that's something which you saw in like the 80s, 90s. I think now the new generation, we've seen it, will back West Indies more. But even if you are using that debate, Trinidad and Guyana, there will be no difference in terms of support. You'd get it either way. So I think they might have gone for Providence just because of the spinning capabilities. But it's interesting, Mash, because that semi-final in Guyana is an early game, 10:30 a.m. So I think even if you do get more people coming, it's not going to be like what we saw last night. It's not going to
be lively. Yeah.
So again, if West Indies are playing a 10:30 a.m. game against India, it might be tricky without that crowd support as well. So at this point, I'd probably say, like, similar to probably what you're going to say, I'd probably fancy playing at Trinidad more. But I'm not sure if it's set in stone or it depends how you finish in the Super 8.
Yeah, that shows you. That already shows you that I was never studying semi-finals, so I don't even know how it works. So, I didn't even look that far in the competition to work that out. So yeah, ultimately, Santokie, we've beaten New Zealand. That's it. I remembered what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And again, this is for the Kiwi fans. West Indian fans, you can respond if you want. That's the end of the cycle for the Kiwis, Santokie. If I think we spoke about this pre-match. And I think we saw all the evidence. If the Afghanistan one was a bit of a wake-up call, again, it reminded me so much, Santokie, of when Tiki-Taka ended for Spain and they went one tournament too far and everybody was just slapping them up like they weren't defending world champions and Euro champions and whatever. Everything about that New Zealand performance smacked of, this is one tournament too far for us now. We've gone back to our old, similar to actually West Indies when we went to Dubai in 2021, with the band, got the band back together, and it was just one tournament too far. We tried to play the old songs again. We tried to go on muscle memory, and it just didn't work anymore. And there was elements of that Kiwi performance, particularly with the back, where I was like, you lot like you're done out here. You don't. Yes, West Indies are bowling well, but you don't have a plan to get out of this. The old hits don't work anymore. So I think that's potentially the end of the golden cycle for some of those New Zealand players. Certainly in the shortest format of the game, they may well go on to be Test players for a few more years here and there. But I wouldn't be surprised, Santokie, if we suddenly heard at the back end of this tournament or after this tournament ends that X number of them go, yeah, that's me done in international cricket. Yeah. Then we go make some down bad money now in the leagues.
Yeah, I think definitely, Trent Bolt, Tim Salvi, they're 34, 35. Jimmy Neesham, maybe Kane Williamson. I think they'll definitely go because it's 2 more years before the next World Cup. If you give up international cricket at this stage of your career, you can seriously make big money on the franchise circuit, and they've done their time for New Zealand cricket. I think no one would begrudge them sort of going for the money in the later stage of their career. So as you said, I think it's time for a new leaf, new chapter for New Zealand cricket. But as we've seen with New Zealand cricket match for the last 20 years, they always seem to produce new players coming up. So don't be surprised to see some new quicks coming through. I've just seen England-Oman score. Oman bowled out for 47. England hit 2 sixes off the first 2 balls in the chase. So let's hope Australia do us a favour and give us Scotland in the Super 8, because England are looking like a threat as well. Yeah,
so England will probably want to try and chase that 47 down in about 4 overs. And then that almost will probably wipe out the negative run rate that they had in the first place if they can do it that quickly. So all those people who are saying, yeah, Scotland are going to be the ones who come through, I think might just have to hold fire a little piece until we see what they do against Australia. But listen, people, as ever, you wouldn't believe it based on the content of the show, but Santokie and I can barely see straight. We've done this show on pure muscle memory. But both of us have had enough, cuz I need to go and sleep. But listen, that's been the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Our next game, when's the next game? Is it
Monday night?
Oh no, we got a good break. Thank you. Thank God. Right, so our next game isn't for a while. Look out for a video from Santokie and myself, probably looking ahead to the Afghanistan game and whatnot. And you should see at the bottom, I didn't even mention it. Obviously, follow Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, Facebook, etc., Discord group. But also, you'll notice if you're following the ticker tape that it now says road to 10K subscribers. We have officially passed 9K. Thanks to everyone who has been subscribing over the last few weeks. We now push for 10K. And if you do want to support us on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket for as little as $1 of whatever your currency is. You can keep supporting the movement. I'll be Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. Santokie's been Santokie. And we'll be back with some more content very, very soon.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.